going to be talking about eighth rests and eighth notes. So the big thing that you have to remember is that an eighth note receives half of a beat in your 2/4, 3/4, and 4/4 times. So an eighth rest would also receive half of a beat. So when we look at this, we have an eighth note. A single eighth note is note head with stem and one flag. 2 eighth notes would have a beam between them. The eighth rest looks very similar to the eighth note. You have kind of a flag in the end verse and then a line down. Almost looks like a 7. So these are equal in value. So if we look at number 168 in our book, we have 4 eighth notes, bar line, quarter, quarter, bar line, 4 eighth notes again, quarter, quarter, 4 eighth notes, bar line, and then you get your eighth note and an eighth rest. Now the big thing that we have to also look at, in the 4th measure, these quarter notes have a staccato dot. This is going to change the way that we play them. It won't change the way that we count them, though. These 2 measures are going to sound pretty much the same. So let's count these out. The first measure, what do you think it is? Well, did you get 1 and 2 and? Second measure, easy enough. 1, 2. We are in 2/4 time, as it says on number 168 in our book. What about here? Same thing as before, 1 and 2 and. Now we get the measure with the 2 staccato quarter notes. This is going to be counted the same exact way. 1, 2. But when we perform this on our instruments, or we sing or da, we are going to separate those quarter notes. We get the same thing here, 1 and 2 and then this measure, we have 1, we're going to rest on the and, 2, and then rest on the and. Now these rests, you're not going to really be able to count. 1, 2, and you're going to have to just chop off. So if you perform it like the dotted quarter, or the staccato quarter note, it's going to sound very similar. All right, so let's put a tempo on, and I'm going to just count through these measures. Here we go. And 1, 2, ready, and 1 and 2 and 1, 2. 1 and 2 and 1, 2. 1 and 2 and 1, 2. Now let's try clapping them together. Here we go. 2, ready, and 1 and 2 and 1, 2. 1 and 2 and 1, 2. 1 and 2 and 1, 2. They all sound pretty much the same when you count or when you clap. The big difference is going to be when you play. So let's get our instruments and let's try playing together number 168. Here we go. On D. Ready? I suggest middle of the bow. 1, 2, ready, and 1 and 2 and 1, 2, 1 and 2 and 1, 2, 1 and 2 and 1, 2. Again, the fourth measure and the sixth measure sound very similar. You stop the bow versus the second measure, which is long bow. Okay. And that's number 168 and how we count eighth notes and the beginnings of how we count eighth rests. Number 169. We are still in 2/4 time. So still 2 beats in a measure. And we're still working with eighth notes and eighth rests. So when we look at this, the first 2 measures are quite simple. You have quarter note, 2 eighth notes, quarter note, 2 eighth notes. Once we get to the third measure, that's when things start to become a little more tricky. You have a quarter note, then an eighth rest, and then an eighth note, and then 2 quarter notes. And then you have a repeat of this rhythm, quarter note, eighth rest, quarter or eighth note, and then a half note to end. So let's go through and count these out. We start at the beginning with this measure. What do you think it is? Did you get 1, 2, and? The second measure is the exact same thing. 1, 2, and. It's when we get to the third measure that, again, it's a little different. What do you think here? We have a quarter note, so it's the same, 1. What about the eighth rest? What beat does that happen on? Did you get 2? This is beat 2, but beat 2 is silent. And then the eighth note is the and of beat 2. So if you look, they're pretty much the same. Then we get 1, 2. We have a repeat, 1, rest on 2, and then 1-2. So let's count through this. Here we go. 1, 2, ready, and 1, 2, and 1, 2, and 1, and 1, 2, 1, and 1-2. So again, we're silent on the eighth rest. Now let's try clapping this. Again, the best way to signify a rest is to clap outwards so that you don't make sound with your clap. Here we go. Clapping. 1, 2, ready, and 1, 2, and 1, 2, and 1, and 1, 2, 1, and 1-2. How'd you do? Take a second if you need to and try it again. Now let's try playing it. We're still on D. So when you get here, you're going to have a long bow and you're going to have to stop and then do an up bow. Here we go. 1, 2, ready, and. try that one more time. Again, you have to stop the bow. 1, 2, and 1, 2. 1, 2, and 1, 2. Here we go. And 1, 2, 1, and. And that's how you count number 169. And now, Alouette, number 170. So number 170 is incorporating the eighth notes and eighth rests. We have quite a few eighth rests. So let's just take a look at what's written in our book first. We have a quarter, well, first we're still in 2/4 time. We're in the key of D major. So everything is standard 2-3 positioning, 3-4 cellos. And we have, again, the eighth notes and eighth rests. So we have a quarter note, that's beat 1. The eighth rest is on beat 2, so we will be silent. The eighth note is on the and of 2. So just like we did in number 169. Measure 2, both eighth notes are on the beat. So like what we did in number 168 at the end. Measure 3, 1 and 2 and. Measure 4, eighth notes on the beat, just like we had before. And then we have a repeat sign and a first and second ending. So we will do the first ending, go back to the beginning, repeat, do the first 3 measures, then jump back over to measure 5 to finish this off. Let's take a stab at this and see how we do. First, let's clap or tap and count the measures. Here we go. 1, 2, ready, and. 1, and 1, 2, 1, and 2, and 1, 2. 1, and 1, 2, 1, and 2, and 1, 2. Go back, look again, make sure that you got all of that correct. Now let's listen and bow along. I'll do fingerings as well, and then we're going to play it.
Alouette.
Number 171, resting again. We've changed time signatures to 4/4. So make sure that we've now changed and we're thinking 1, 2, 3, 4 instead of just 1, 2. Key signature is still the same, D major. We start off in the first measure, 2 quarter notes, 4 eighth notes, 1, 2, 3, and 4 and. Measure 2, you have a quarter note, eighth rest, eighth note, 2 quarters notes. So this is the one that we have that we just practiced in Alouette and number 169, single eighth notes and rests. 1 and 3, 4. If you put a little breath on the and, or the rest, then it's going to help. 1 and 3, 4. Helps to place that and. Measure 3, 4 eighth notes, then an eighth note, eighth rest, eighth note, eighth rest. Just like 168. 1 and 2 and 1. 1 and 2 and 3, 4. And then the last measure is just a whole note. And let's try this with a metronome, counting and tapping. Here we go. 1, 2, ready, and. 1, 2, 3, and 4, and 1, and 3, 4. 1 and 2 and 3, 4. 1 2 3 4 and off. Okay? Now let's try it with playing. Remember, everything is nice and long. You're keeping the bow moving. Here we go. Ready? 1, 2, 3, and 4, and. The final piece of this collection is 172, Mei Song. So this is incorporating the eighth rests with the eighth note afterwards, and it's much longer. You're also expanding out. You're using a few more notes. And you've got a couple other interesting things. So first off, 4/4 time signature, key of D major, 2 sharps. Regular finger pattern, no low 2s. Next up, we scan over the piece. We have some dynamics. Again, forte in the beginning, so nice and full sound. And measure 5, mezzo forte. Lay back. Remember, which bowing lanes do you use for each? Closer to the bridge with more pressure for forte. Middle, medium pressure, medium speed for mezzo forte. We get DC al fine, da capo al fine, meaning to go back to the beginning, da capo, the head, and then play until you see fine. So where's the fine? Scan through, and we find that the fine is at the end of measure 4. So we play 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, back to the beginning, 1, 2, 3, 4. Now counting wise, the big challenges are measure 1 and measure 3. We get quarter note, eighth rest, eighth note, quarter, quarter. We just did this in number 171. 1 and 3, 4. Just like 171. Okay? So let's listen, and then we're going to play through.
Mei Song.
And 3, 4, 1, 2, and 3 dash 4. 1 and 3, 4. 1 dash 2, 3 dash 4. Softer, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, and 3 dash 4. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, and 3 dash loud. 1 and 3, 4, 1, 2, and 3 dash 4. 1 and 3, 4, 1 dash 2, 3 dash 4.